Podcast, everybody. My name is Connor, and with me, as always, are Chance and Chase. Today, we are talking about the national scene, big picture stuff about the college football landscape. We've got impacts of the first year of the 12-team playoff, rather. We've got NIL shakeups. We've got some lawsuits that are going on between teams. It's going to be a whole lot of broad stroke stuff. Exciting things happening in the sport. We've got a lot of opinions on a lot of things. Let's kick it off. Let's talk about the end of last season. This 12-team playoff was greeted with a lot of vitriol, and I will be the first one to own that I was not excited about it. I thought that it was going to be pretty bad. I thought that anything over 8 was just too much, and it was just going to be making way too low of a bar to have people live up to. And I was pleasantly surprised. Now, I do wish that the NCAA had not jumped the gun by immediately restructuring the conference championship thing. I would have preferred more than one single data point, especially given that two of those games, or one of those games was actually pretty dang close between Georgia Notre Dame came down to they lost their quarterback, and then Texas versus Arizona State was a hair's breadth away from going the other direction.
Highway robbery.
Yeah, seriously. I think it's very unfair to say that the conference champions gained way too much bias from getting that bye, and I also think that it's really bad for the sport to not have conference championships mean hardly anything anymore. But what did you guys like about it? Chase, why don't you kick it off? What were your thoughts and reactions to the 12-team playoff?
Well, I definitely thought it was entertaining, and I have a bit of a bias, obviously, as you know, it definitely helped Arizona State get their bid with 2 losses, and that probably would not have gotten them in a 14 playoff. So I loved seeing Arizona State have a chance, and I really believe they should have won that Texas game. It was a close game. It's in the past now, but they deserved to be there, and they competed. And there's some other teams that were in that that also deserved the chance to be there. So I definitely was one of those people that didn't want them to expand too much. But I think right where they are now is at 12 teams. I think that is a good way to stay. I think 12 is fine. I don't think we need to expand any further. Especially so soon, like you said, having 1 or 2 data points and being like, let's add 20 more teams. Let's just go full on March Madness.
We knew from day one, year one, that 4 teams was not enough. But they did it for 10 years. And now, 1 year into the 12-team playoff, and a certain team from the SEC that somehow keeps coming up on this show misses it the first year, in spite of them losing their legendary head coach. Everybody expected a rebuild, and they were still right on the cusp of it. But all of a sudden, we need to restructure it because it's just not fair. It's just not fair to everyone.
They didn't get in, you got to give them a chance. If they don't have 5 second chances, then what is college football?
Yeah, talking, of course, about Auburn.
Yeah, about Auburn.
Yeah, talking, of course, about Auburn. Chance,
War Eagle.
You were on one of the roughest receiving edges of the 12-team playoff.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, I mean, it was... You look at it, and I think I kind of accepted the fate due to the darn Jayhawks. And then after you look at all the games, you're like, well, we could have done better than that. I mean, to be fair, it was a lot of fun, but there wasn't a lot of upsets. And so you do kind of get the question of, was it right to expand? Did the right teams get in? I mean, BYU did beat one of these teams on the road. How are they in versus them? So I think there's a lot of questions that happened with the playoffs, and I think there's going to be a lot of tweaking needed. But it was a lot of fun, and I think what part of the fun for me was we're not watching the same 4 teams over and over again. We're watching. Hey, we're at Penn State. This is an opportunity to and watch their crowd in their stadium and get in that environment. We get to see some teams that we don't usually see. We get to see Indiana get blown out, but it was fun watching them get blown out.
They were there. They had their chance. They got to shoot their shot.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, it was fun.
It
to
wasn't
see
a
that,
good
right?
shot, but they were there.
I mean, I just can take so much of Ryan Smith is 17 years old. I want to see and something different, and I think that was definitely different. I will say I'm gonna bring up some hot topics for you guys. There wasn't any upsets, right? And it kind of played how everybody thought it would play in the playoffs. I think it was so good for the NCAA, and I think they need to expand even more. I do think that we need to go to 16 teams.
State your case then.
But yeah. Well,
this is a rough one to defend.
Yeah, I know it's controversial. It is certainly not because of the results of last year. Because, like I said, the teams that were going to win it, we're going to win it. But I think it's the aftermath of what we're seeing now. What we're seeing now is a bunch of teams that are thinking, wait, I can make the playoffs. I need to invest more in my football program. And I think we're going to see a lot less. We're going to see a more competitive landscape. I mean, I see a bunch of teams. We just talked about Texas Tech. They're going all in. They see a path that they can make it big, and I think they can. We see teams BYU. They're going huge into recruiting right now, and they have got their best recruiting class ever. We see, some of the teams like a Virginia, a Duke, even in North Carolina, they're going all in. And we're not going to see Alabama get all of the recruits anymore. They're still going to get dudes. They're still going to be top dogs. But because of the playoffs and the opportunities and the expansion of it, in a couple of years, we're going to see that less and less. And we're going to maybe see some of these other teams slip through the cracks and maybe even make the championship game instead of the same old Alabama, Notre Dame, Michigan, Georgia kind of thing.
This brings up probably the single most interesting thing about the big picture of college football right now. And Chase, given that you have strong loyalties in two very different cultural conferences, I'm interested in hearing your thoughts first. One of the big things that people love about college football is specifically that it's not the NFL. In the NFL, any given Sunday is the rule, right? Any given team can beat any other team on any given day. It's the professional level. The difference between, was it 2009 Cleveland Browns and the 2009 Patriots is a fairly small margin, all things considered, right? As in, they're both professional teams, at the end of the day. Teams tend to win more or less, but really, the Carolina Panthers can go 15-1 one year, and then they can, barely cut it in their own conference, even be relevant with much of the same roster the next year. That's just how it happens. People like in college football that you have to be elite, that you have to have 1 to 3 losses is the max. Really 1 to 2 losses. You have to be chasing perfection. And the more teams that you add to the playoff, the lower the standard becomes. The more teams that will sneak in. Now, Ohio State, as much as I hate to give them credit for anything, because the fan base will never ever shut up about it, about fixing whatever went wrong in the season, but they did. They fixed what they needed to fix, and they steamrolled the playoff. They played 3 or 4, whatever it was, brilliant, beautiful, nearly flawless games. Notre Dame gave them a real run, but even then, they won it comfortably down the stretch. As someone who has allegiances in both the SEC and the Big 12, how are you processing that idea between wanting to maintain the elite stature but also wanting to give people a fair shake?
I think there's a lot to be said about keeping the integrity of college football the way it is. I think where we're at right now with 12 teams gives smaller teams a chance to get in. It gives teams like Arizona State, it gives Iowa State, it gives BYU all these chances to get in. If BYU would have won one of those games that they lost, Arizona State, which they could have, they were right there. They threw that ball after that 1 second got put back on the clock because
3 yards away from the
was not done. They were in that. They had their chance. If they didn't lose to Kansas the way they did, they would have been in that Big 12 championship, and then they would have been competing with whichever team. I forget what the tiebreaker would have been at that point, but they would have been competing with either Arizona State or Iowa State to have that playoff spot. So I think that gives the opportunity for these smaller teams to get in. However, I think if we expanded like Chance wants to do, I think that just gives more leeway to let in these abysmally performing big schools. Like they were arguing for Alabama to get in with 3 losses last season. 3 losses. I could understand if those,
the other a blowout loss to
yeah.
Oklahoma and one of Oklahoma's
Exactly where I'm getting at. Is they weren't even good losses. They were a terrible loss to Oklahoma, a 6-6 at the Oklahoma team, and then another terrible loss to Vanderbilt, one of the most notoriously bad teams in SEC. Like most teams overlook Vanderbilt even Nick Saban was quoted as no game in the SEC is easy, and then he goes except Vanderbilt. He literally said except Vanderbilt. And then the year he leaves, they lose to Vanderbilt. Like the Tennessee one, that one's fair. Tennessee has definitely been a team that's performed a lot better in the last few seasons. In 2022, they beat Alabama. They were in the playoffs this last season. They're a good team, and so that's not a bad loss. But that Vandy and OU cannot happen if you're a big team like Alabama or Ohio State. And just giving them these extra chances, I think it's bad for the sport. It's letting teams make all these mistakes and then just at the end of the season, see how lucky they get with who they end up in their brackets. So,
but
I don't.
So, but you just described two sides of the coin, right? You just described a BYU team that was 3 yards away, right? And
3 yards away from being 11-1.
Which would have been a playoff team.
Not 9-3 Alabama.
Well, what I'm saying is that you have those teams that would have that opportunity, but you also have the Alabamas that would have the opportunity as well, right? So again, two sides of the coin. Some teams would make it that deserve to make it and could possibly make a splash. And then you do have the Alabamas. But don't forget, I mean, even if they didn't deserve it, and I agree they didn't, they could have made some noise, Alabama. They beat Georgia.
They also lost to Michigan.
That was early in the season.
They had the talent and they had the opportunity to make that shift. They didn't. But my argument is going to be that to me, you guys can say, I mean, maybe I saw a different Ohio State. To me, Ohio State and Georgia were the best teams in the country the whole season. Georgia fell flat because they had some injuries at the end. But I saw Ohio State the whole way being the best team. And it's because they had the most money. They had
spent the most
yada,
money.
yada, yada, right? And if we expand the playoffs, maybe some of those players that their priority is to make the playoff, they don't have to go to Ohio State to guarantee that. They can go to a North Carolina. They can go to Belichick and see if he's going to live long enough to make the playoff. And then there's going to be a little bit more competition and more teams are going to earn it and they're going to be in the games. But that's just my opinion.
Chance, do you know what the 4 teams with the 16-team playoff, what the 4 teams that would have made it last year would have been?
So you got Iowa State, you got Miami.
Just according to rankings of who would have been the next 4.
Georgia.
Miami's not one of them.
Well, the next
Miami.
4 out.
Yeah.
4
Miami.
out.
So you got Miami, you got Alabama. Yep.
Ole Miss and South Carolina. That would put 5 SEC teams in the playoff, most of whhom lost to. And I'm not saying that Ole Miss and South Carolina and whatever, even Alabama weren't good. You think that it would? And I guess here's in order to just reframe the conversation around a productive goal. Let's talk about. Do you think that it would be better for the sport to have one conference be able to get that many automatic bids simply because they do tend to be favored higher than the others? Do you not think that it would exacerbate the issue of favoritism?
That's certainly the worry. I get that point. That's certainly the worry. I mean, I did not have, frankly, those teams as high in the rankings. I would have put a Miami and a BYU up there as knocking on the door. But yeah, it would be worrisome to me if those extra 4 teams came from the SEC and the Big Ten, and there was only one Big 12 team and 2 ACC teams, because that's where I think those teams really have the mystery. Can they do it? Can they not? And clearly, I mean, the Arizona State showed they can hang in there, and you didn't give them a shot.
Yeah.
And I think BYU certainly could have done that. I think Miami could have done that. because I think a lot of their players would have played in the bowl and they had the talent, but they didn't get the shot. And so, yeah, the worry definitely, to your point, is if you put in more of those Big Ten and SEC schools, they already kind of proved in their conference that they're not going to do it. So why would they prove in the playoff? I get that point. I do. I wish there was a way that some of these other schools that could prove it could do it, because I think there's still talent there that wasn't showcased.
I think, and Chase, Chase, you look like you got something on your mind. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think the bigger issue really is this like formation of these super conferences of essentially just, we used to have Power 5. Now we basically just have Power 4 right now. You have this overinflated SEC.
They want to talk about it being
overinflated Big Ten. Like, and you're adding all these teams. Like, why? I don't know why we diverged from the conferences we had. Obviously, the Pac-12, ate itself in more ways than one.
The Pac-12. Here's the thing, though. No conference would have benefited more on the national scene from a 12-team playoff than the Pac.
Mm-hmm.
Seriously, a conference that regularly did, and there were some years that were down, but most of the time, the Pac-12 performed in bowl season on the national stage just as well as any other conference. They really did. If you look back at all the years, most of the time they really did hold their own on a national level. But the conference was so freaking competitive that they would eat each other. I mean,
they would eat each other alive.
Stanford and Oregon famously ruined each other's seasons. Arizona and Oregon ruined, or Arizona State, Oregon State. Cal would come in and trip somebody up. Utah, every team had other teams. Washington State would go and do that to people.
Yeah.
But on the national stage, they held their own. And go ahead.
You're talking about the Big 12 and the ACC or the ACC right now, right? I mean, they're doing that right now, and that's why I'm saying it would be nice to give them a chance at that, because the Big 12 ate itself up. The stupid Jayhawks ruined a 2 or 3 playoff run in that conference. But it shows that there was talent and they could do it. So it would be nice if some of those teams could make it in. But
changing that ranking, I'm telling you, I don't think that would solve the issue of the bias. We all see it. We all see it happening. I don't think it would fix that to expand it.
Mm-hmm.
Because those rankings, even at the end of the season, if you take the final rankings after the playoffs and the bowl were completed, I mean, number 16 team was Illinois. Does anybody really think? And Illinois had a great season for Illinois, but does anybody think that they got snubbed from the playoff? That they secretly were a playoff contender? No.
The Fighting Illini.
Yeah,
they're going to be good this year. Just saying.
I hope so. I would love to see someone else. You want to talk about dominated?
I guess, again, going back to my point, I think it's not what it is right now. It's what it's doing to college football that I like. I like that these players are going to different teams and not Alabama having the first, second, and third all SEC, all USA teams. It's spreading it out a little bit, and that's the part of the playoff that I really am anticipating in a couple years.
Can we at least all agree that 1 year is way too soon?
Absolutely.
To be seriously having this conversation. The fact that it's even coming up. Yeah. We really do need at least 3 years worth. Especially with the way that NIL is changing. We'll get to NIL right after this. But with the way that NIL is constantly changing right now, the way the transfer portal is being overhauled, it would be disastrous to be really seriously considering expanding after one single season.
I'll give you that. I do think you need 2 more years probably to consider it. But if it trends the way I think it's trending, I'm hoping they at least consider it.
And maybe many of our opinions will change after 2 or 3 more seasons of this. If it keeps happening, if Boise State keeps falling short in big moments, which I think that Boise State beat themselves in that game. Penn State was a much better offensive team than down the stretch than they were in the beginning of the year. But Boise State played its most conservative game of football in that Penn State game. Everybody knew that they were going to feed it to Genty. Everybody knew that Penn State's D-line was stacked. and they were as predictable as they could possibly be. Maddox Madsen is a way better quarterback, and they had much more talented receivers, and they did not open up the playbook at all. And I will say that's probably my biggest takeaway that I feel like not enough people are talking about. In that first round, the more conservative playing team, the team that took less chances, is the team that lost. Tennessee tried to play by the book football. Indiana played like they were trying to just stay in it. Now, I don't think Indiana was going to win that game, regardless. I really don't. And I think that Tennessee massively underestimated Ohio State. But still, those two teams played really conservative. Those three teams played really conservative ball. Texas or Clemson tried to open it up, but they opened it up in the second half, and they played conservative in the first half. And they almost came back. They really did. They had a shot in the fourth quarter to put that game, to take the lead, and they fell short. But they put themselves in that position. So for those reasons, I would like to see another year. I mean, before we really give credence to that expansion. Sorry. Chase, anything else on that?
Yeah, no, I agree. It's similar to in a previous episode when we talked about firing a coach after one season. Like it's ridiculous to you give a guy one season, you're like, oh, yep, time to change it up. This didn't work. It's the same with this playoff scheme. We're just like, oh yeah, the one time Alabama doesn't get in, we gotta expand, guys. We gotta expand. It's the only way it's going to be healthy for the sport. So.
Third grade level math is you cannot discern a pattern from a single point of data. Mm-hmm. It's just reckless and frankly a little immature, and they gotta do the right thing.
You can if it's a buttload of money. That's all I gotta say.
Speaking of money, though, how about these NIL changes? Let's talk salary caps. Let's talk government intervention. Let's talk about regulating these things. Chance, you got a brain for this kind of thing. Go ahead and catch everybody else up.
Well, here's the thing is, I don't think anybody knows what in the world is going on or what in the world is going to happen, to be frank. I mean, they're making deals to kids that say, hey, we're going to pay you this. But if things change and we can be the wild, wild west in the NIL, then we're going to actually pay you this. Right, that was Texas Tech's deal recently with the number 1 overall recruit, and so it's in flux. It's nuts. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But I mean, as much good and bad there is, I think the big winner is just athletes in general. I just gotta say that to get those guys finally paid is such a big win. I mean, the NCAA has been just making so much money off the backs of these kids. It's time. I mean, not that I was a big time athlete or whatever, but I turned down a little bit of money. I did cross country and track in college, and there was a couple races that I won, and they're like, okay, here's your prize fund. And I was like, I can't. Sorry, I can't do it. No, I can't accept your $50.
They'll vacate BYU's wins if I do that, so I can't.
Yeah. Well, it's UVU, but yes. And then there was some other dumb things like there's just dumb rules that you can give somebody 2 pieces of bread, but as soon as you put meat on it, it's a sandwich, and you're breaking an NCAA rule. So there's just the dumbest things, and these kids were worth so much money that I'm so glad that they're making money. And one more thing I'll put out there: if I was a high school athlete and I was okay, and I'm getting offers from UC Riverside or Texas State or whatever, I might consider it now. Whereas in the past, maybe I'd be like, yeah, that's embarrassing. Well, let's say you go to Texas State for a year or 2. And you put in the work and you become a decent player, and I don't know, let's say TCU starts calling and they said, hey, if you come for your last 2 years here, we'll give you $250,000. That's life-changing money, So, I mean, I think there's just going to be more competitiveness in the sport, just a great win that people can make money. That's the good side. The bad side is, what is happening? Yeah. And I don't know if you guys are aware, but I mean, there's congressional bills that are trying to go through. Yes and no. We'll see what happens. Right now, it seems like the future is that the schools are going to be able to pay the kids, and some NIL deals are going to go through. The way I see it, or I predict it going, is that schools are going to be able to pay up to a cap. We'll see if that's true or not. They'll be able to pay up to a cap, and then some NIL deals are going to go through, but I think it's going to be mostly like neutral NIL deals. So, talking basketball just really quick, AJ Debanza just signed a 6-figure contract with Fanatics. That wasn't dependent on going to BYU or anything. That was just, he's a super good player. They want to represent him. That's more of the future, but I could be wrong. And that would help maybe with the competitiveness aspect of it. But your Texas State is probably not going to breach the cap still.
Chase, I got some thoughts, but go ahead on this. Thank you for that breakdown, Chance. That was actually pretty comprehensive.
Well, I'd still hold the same stance I've always had on it, is that money for college kids that have earned it, that are athletes, they're betting their body on putting their body on the line and betting on themselves, going to these schools, and the schools are making money off them. Why shouldn't they get a share of it? There's no reason that they shouldn't get a share of what value they're bringing to that school. So just to get a scholarship or whatever little benefits that they give just to go to that school, that's nothing for some of these athletes. That means very little. It might mean something to some people, but they deserve the same chance that some of the other guys get. So I don't think taking that away would ever be a good idea, but I think where we're going is a good thing. There's always going to be some people that, take it a little aggressively and overpay certain people, like maybe like how Michigan did with the guy they snagged from LSU this offseason. But I think it's still good for the sport, and that's all I have to say about that.
I agree that now it's going to be good for the sport. I was vehemently against it for a long time, but I don't compliment the NCAA for making quality decisions, especially when it pertains to football, very often. But I think they're getting it right on this one. And I'm also, just in general, personality-wise, not a huge fan of government intervention on a lot of things. But I like it in this case because I think that having the regulations in place are going to make it not the Wild West anymore. Chance, to your point, every college has money. Like, let's be real. But many schools have a lot deeper pockets than others. Texas State is not going to be able to compete with Michigan. They're just not. But if you make it an even playing field, then they can. Because they do have pockets, but not limitless pockets. And I think that's where these regulations are trying to go, is make it at a certain point where it can be equitable, right? And at least give everybody a fair shake at it. And they're also, from what I've gathered, because very, like I'll say, it's a very influx situation. They're trying to spread it around to the other sports too. It's not just going to be the football and basketball show, and that's been my biggest issue, because for the longest time, it's been, sure, give them all the money you want to a sport that makes money, and and my biggest gripe is, and Chance, you know this better than anybody as a cross country athlete, you put your body through hell on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis in college. Now, maybe you weren't getting concussions every day, but that doesn't mean that you weren't up at 4:30 in the morning running through the mountains and the hills and doing your ice baths, getting that all done before you even step foot in a classroom, just like all the other athletes. And there wasn't a chance for you to win anything other than maybe, like you said, some prize money at a track meet. There's nobody in the world that's going to, sign you to a 6-figure, 7-figure contract at the professional cross country league. It's just not going to happen. And especially, and so to spread it around to the other sports, that's what I like to see, because especially people like the wrestlers, the rugby players, the tennis players, that it's so hard to make any kind of money at, but they work so hard. They deserve that opportunity as well, like that. And if they're going to keep it going on this trend, I really like it for women's sports. Very much so for women's sports. I know a lot of top-notch female athletes that have chosen to forego collegiate level sports because they think, what's the point? What's the point of working this hard that they don't even have the possibility of earning. I know people personally who have gotten scholarships for volleyball to go to Oregon. I mean, top 25 program every year, tons of money, and they turn it down because they're like, okay, why? Why would I do that? Why would I work that? I can get an academic scholarship to pay for most of my college and then not have to go through all that extra work to then, I'm not going to make the Olympic team. It's like there's a ceiling. There's such a ceiling in women's sports, and if there's a little bit of money coming in and it's equal like that, spread around at the college level. Now, in the professional level, that's a much different game. In my opinion, you get in the professional level, you're getting paid, in my opinion, for the ratings that you bring in. That's an entirely different conversation for a different day. But at the collegiate level, keep it fair. I like it. I absolutely love the way that it's going. I hope that it keeps trending in the direction that it is.
Can I play devil's advocate?
Sure, please.
All right. So the way I think that it's gonna go is you're going to get a cap for all of your sports, and you're going to decide where you want to put the money, right? As a school, I think that's the direction that they're going to go. I could be wrong on that. I think that while it is nice to spread the money, and I think it should be spread, I think the money's got to go where the fan base is and where it's being produced. When I was doing cross country and track, you're right. I mean, there were seasons I woke up at 4:30 in the morning and we went through practice, and then I had to go to school, and then I was just beat up and done, and then you have to travel and do all these things. And for my sport, it was cross country, indoor track, outdoor track. It's all year, it's intense. But I did that knowing I'm not making my school money. I'm losing my school money, actually. So my expectations weren't to make the big bucks, and I don't think that is the expectation of these athletes.
I'm not saying that you need to be given six figures to divers. Yeah. I'm saying that having something.
Yeah, right? A little bit would have been nice. I mean, I did appreciate the scholarship, and maybe I would have appreciated not, again, the sandwich thing, that not having two pieces of bread, but maybe I could spread some peanut butter on there or something. That would have been nice, or maybe some meals paid for, be able to get a protein shake without worrying about the rules of I can do this one, but I can't do that one. Maybe more per diem on the road, there would have been some nice things, and maybe a couple bucks in my pocket, but I don't think the expectations could have been too much more than that. Because again, I knew I'm doing something, and it's more of a passion and a hobby that I'm not making big bucks for anybody, so I can't expect it in return.
Yeah. One other big thing on this that I think is the opposite side of the coin, that I think that we're going to put a stop to a negative thing that's starting to crop up very quickly, is I think that we're going to be able to check the attitudes a little bit, the sense of entitlement that is coming out of a lot of players, that I think it's starting to crop up, and I think that it's going to be going to the wayside. And this is probably a very unpopular opinion in general, but I want to point out Nico Iamaleava.
Yeah, that's who I thought you said.
That's where I'm going, and someone had to be the fall guy for it. It's unfortunate that it had to be him, but I just want to point out the trend that I think is going to be going away because of his case. Imperfect, but highly talented quarterback. He showed flashes of mega potential, and he made some errors, but he's got probably 2 more years left in college football, at least one. And he was playing for a historically quality program. Took him to the victory over Alabama at home, one of the biggest wins in program history, one of the most meaningful, at least, to the hearts of the fans, after coming so close so many times and falling short so many times. And then obviously show up in the playoff, get blown out, but you were still there. They were a playoff team. They were a legitimate, absolutely legitimate, earned it playoff team. He didn't get a gigantic 7-figure deal. Boom, gone. To UCLA, a lesser school. I think we can all agree that most of the time, Tennessee is a way better program for people to dream of going to for football than UCLA. Even in basketball, a lot of times, like, they're more of a toss-up in that sport. But and I don't know him personally. I'm not gonna speak to his character, but I am gonna speak to how it can be interpreted. And that is obviously easily interpreted as being a prima donna, having an attitude, wanting to go to a school that's willing to pay him simply because they're willing to pay him. If there's a cap, if there's some kind of regulation then I think he stays at Tennessee. And I think that he doesn't shoot himself in the foot by going to a school that we all know is not going to run the Big Ten next year. UCLA is not going to do any better this year than they did last year, and I don't think they're going to be relevant in college football for quite a while. They and USC imploded the Pac-12. Let nobody ever forget that. That the reason that the college football shakeup happened is in very large part to those LA schools thinking that they can just jump ship and run the Big Ten, and both of them got annihilated all year long, embarrassed all year long, and now but because they have super deep California pockets, all of a sudden they're attracting some big talent. I think it's going to get squandered there, and I hope that he's one of the last ones, and I hope that trend has changed. Anybody else see it that way?
I'll take a shot. I would actually go to a different direction, Connor. I don't know if a cap is the answer or not. I go back and forth all the time. But what I do think would help is figuring out a different way to do these contracts for these kids. And maybe it's a scaling bonus, or figuring out how there's not a transfer every single year, or there's, hey, if you stick around for sophomore, junior year, we scale up your bonuses. We give you this much more, so that they're not jumping ship, or there's more incentive to stay. Or maybe it's, hey, you are guaranteed this amount of money if you stay with the program. If you transfer out, you're going to lose this amount of money. And it gets their skin in the game a little bit more. Because, Nico's excuse was, the offensive playbook, it didn't really showcase me or whatever, and that's why he left.
Oh, give me a break. He was the face of the program.
Exactly, right?
Everybody knew it.
It just felt, it didn't feel genuine, right? And it felt a little bit more about money, or maybe, maybe it was about the offensive playbook. I don't know. But if he had a contract that said, hey, you're going to lose this amount of money if you leave, he's got more skin in the game. Maybe he stays, I think that's what I would rather see instead of these people leaving. So,
would you rather see lump sum at the end of the season be like the standard? Because here, to throw an idea out there, so we're not just doing complaining, how I've envisioned the best scenario is, and it would be really, really, really hard to do, but I do think that having a salary cap for every player, and you can ratio it based on the sport. You can distribute your funds however you want based on the sport, as long as each team gets something, and then free them up to be able to get sponsorships. If you want to go out and you want to be sponsored by Adidas, sponsored by Buffalo Wild Wings, name, it doesn't matter who, you can be free to do that, and then have your school still be paying you, so that it's not just the superstars of the sport getting everything, and then everybody else is left over with scraps.
But who's getting those big deals by Adidas? Adidas going to a few players at the most. And these NIL deals are from boosters. That's what it is. It's not these name brands that are actually using them. I think maybe a different direction you can go is, hey, we're going to give you a portion of jersey sales, or your name, image, and likeness for the college itself. Maybe there's some way to do it that, or whatever sponsorships we get. The school of Alabama will share a portion with you. Maybe you can do it, something like that, but I don't know. It gets really tricky. Yeah. I will say I'm very weary of some contracts. I think there's got to be some guarantees to it, because I would feel for college kids that get injured and get thrown by the wayside and lay on all on the line, like we said, to not get anything. So I think I'd rather see the incentives be staying and a loyalty to a school than maybe even a performance-based, or, hey, a lump sum at the end. I don't know. I just want to, there's got to be some way to get these contracts for loyalty. Here's the other problem that's going on that a lot of people don't realize happening behind the scenes. It's reports, so I could be wrong, but a lot of agents are taking like up to 40% of these kids' money. It's nuts. It's nuts. It's way more than professionals, what the professionals are taking. Now, granted, they're talking to a lot more teams and finding more opportunities, but there's a lot of incentives for these agents to go out and listen and to get these kids elsewhere, or to this place or that place. And I think that's killing a lot of things. On the verse side, we're going to tampering. What is tampering nowadays, right? Because we've got this lawsuit going on, right? Wisconsin is trying to sue Miami for stealing one of their players. A little bit of irony on that because Wisconsin has some penalties already because of recruiting. So I don't know how that one's going.
They're pulling the old you.
Right. It doesn't sound like they're going to. But, I mean, what is tampering? Because you can go and you can talk to the agent legally, but you cannot talk to the player. Or you can have a kid on your team talk to the player. You just can't, as a coach, talk to a certain player. So what's happening? They're all contacting these agents, or more likely, these agents are talking to all these other teams. And so it's chaotic. And that's a lot of what the transfer portal is. It's these agents are pretty greedy, and they're like, hey, I can make a buttload of money. I'm gonna call up, hey, I've got a kid, he's playing well at Oklahoma State. Let's see if we can get Alabama on the line. Let's see if we can get this and this on the line. And then he's convincing these kids that we need to go. There's more money over here on the horizon. Yeah. There's got to be some way to combat that. And I think a lot of the problem is these agents right now.
Do you think putting a cap on the amount of transfers that a player can do, like 2 transfers in your career, is all that's allowed?
Maybe,
because there are very legitimate reasons to transfer.
Yeah, that's my worry. There are legitimate transfers, and I mean there are kind of rules about it. Like if a coach gets fired or leaves, you have an opportunity outside of the transfer portal to hop in there. So there are some of those, but it's just a tricky landscape. I don't think anybody knows the answer, but I think we do know that it's got to improve. There's got to be something that happens. And again, I don't know if it's a cap, but there's still some exploitation going on. And maybe it's not the NCAA as much anymore, but maybe it's these agents or these teams that are still exploiting some of the things going on.
Going back to the end of this, and then Chase, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this one as well. I think this is a similar thing to what we're hoping happens with the playoff. Is I just want to see whatever they come up with. I want them to do it very slowly. I want them to take their time making these decisions, maybe implement some things gradually and see what works. I think that the biggest disservice that you can do to the fans, the universities, and the athletes especially, is to make big sweeping changes really fast. I that's probably the most reckless way. I mean, Chase, what are your thoughts?
Impulsive. That's very impulsive. Yeah. So, no, I agree wholeheartedly. I think they should take their time on making those decisions. I don't think they should jump to any conclusions within a year span. You got to think these things through because they affect tons of lives, tons of college athletes, and what's going to happen for their collegiate careers and possibly their professional careers if they're going into the next level. In regards to what we were just talking about, though, if we're introducing a cap, and Chance said that he thinks they would be doing it as like a whole with all of the sports, I think that would hurt certain schools more than others because there's some schools that they're obviously going to put it all into football. That's their good sport, right? And then there's other schools that compete in really every sport. So they wouldn't have the flexibility to keep their football team good and their basketball team good and their baseball team good. So I don't think lumping them all together would be the solution for that. So if that's an idea they're going with, I don't think they should go in that direction. I think they should separate it by sport. And I guess the school could have control over what they want to do money-wise since it is their money, but I don't think they should put a cap on all sports total collegiate.
Yeah, whatever. There's so much in flux. Overall, I hope that it's good. There's a lot of ways it can go really wrong. There's a lot of ways that it can go really right, though. And whatever they do, I just hope that they make all these decisions slowly and really. And it's a big ask to have them keep, the players and the fans in mind over profits. That's a big ask, but I think it can be done. And I'm hopeful that, and that's one of the things that I was excited about with, starting this podcast too, was trying to be part of that conversation that gets the word out there to tell people what we want to see, that we have athletes' perspectives, that we have fans' perspectives, that you can make all the money that you want. And that's totally fine. In fact, I encourage everybody to be as prosperous as they can in this world. Great. But do it with the integrity to be methodical and to keep those things at the forefront. Go ahead.
Can I want to bring up one more comment on, well, just one more topic maybe on money and changing landscapes and everything. Conferences. We had big shakeup, and it's kind of tumbling into some smaller shakeups. Go Texas State, the biggest addition,
Pac-12 is back, baby.
Pac-12 is back.
Don't even call it a comeback. It never left.
Oh, man. I'd love to hear you guys' opinions on what's the next steps. Where is this going? What's the fears? What's the hopes? Because I know I've got some opinions on them. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts.
Best news is for a lot of people in the Pacific Northwest is that finally Boise State will never again be the champion of the Mountain West. Guarantee you. They're done running the table on the Mountain West. The Mountain West is wide open now. Thank goodness. That being said, I don't know. I've looked at who's there, and it really sounds like the Boise State is just going to be the perpetual champions of the Pac-12 now.
Sacramento State just signed a 4-star.
Did they really?
Yeah.
Hey, go NIL.
No, they've got huge money, and so they're kind of one of these things that I'm saying, like, hey, maybe Sacramento State, they start pushing all their chips forward, and maybe they can make the stage. I mean, they almost, was it Michael Vick they almost hired, or did they hire?
Hired? Like currently? You mean?
Yeah.
Michael Vick is willing to show his face around college football these days? I mean, I just thought I just assumed he was blacklisted from the game.
He's at Norfolk State.
That's probably about as high as he'll ever
go. But he did consider Sacramento State because they've got money. So, I mean, there's good and bad. I mean, I did hear some a different show kind of mention and toy with the idea that the Pac-12 is better than the Big 12.
Yeah.
Which was a very hilarious segment for me.
Go ahead and tell me that any conference that has Utah State in it is better than any conference that doesn't have Utah State.
Yeah, that was funny to me. But I mean, the little triggers that are happening now are a result of the P4s happening. But it just seems like we're waiting until the next round of media rights, and the next one up is ACC for kind of what's going to happen next. Now, are we headed to the P2?
I do hope, and it's a long shot. What I would love to see is the Big 12 and the Pac-12 shake themselves out to be a little bit more geographically sane. And I would like to see the West Coast ACC teams come back to a West Coast conference. Because I think that those two teams have potential, if they're in a conference that makes sense, to buoy the relative skill level. Stanford really has to decide whether they want to be good at football again.
Are you saying that Stanford and Cal don't belong in the Atlantic Coastal Conference?
Yeah. You call me crazy. Yeah, I know. That's my hot take.
You ready to call them on it,
Dan? That Cal and Stanford don't belong in the ACC. Yeah, I will spin that wheel all day long.
I mean, I think we can talk about how it shouldn't be the way it is, but I don't think there's any turning back. They're not going to turn back. It's all about money.
We're talking 3, 4, 5 years from now, and this is why I'm saying make these changes slowly. If you take time to process it, you don't just throw the dice and completely scramble every single egg in your omelet every single year. You let it settle, you see what works, you add in a couple of things, and then you can redistribute.
Yeah, you're talking from a fan's perspective. If you're talking from the NCAA and these teams, you're looking at success as money.
You'll make more money if you're methodical.
No,
you're gonna make it in spurts here and there.
They are being methodical. They're thinking, hey, if we break up this conference and we go this way and we put these teams here, it's going to make more money. That's how it shaped up. Literally, how it shook up was nothing about performance, nothing about geography. It was 100% about money.
But that's how it got shook up. One time for a deal to go horribly wrong, and then everyone is underwater. It's a miracle that college football is in the shape that it's in right now. USC and UCLA jumping ship almost collapsed like a third of the country's college football programs. The Big 12 barely scraped it together, and the Pac-12 is a shell of what it once was. But thankfully, they're
Mountain
cobbling
West
together
Light
something to be able to
is the
go.
Mountain West 2.
The Mountain West 2.0. Yeah, I don't even remember who's left in the Mountain West.
But again, Connor, they didn't care about the shakeup because the shakeup just produced money. That's all they cared about.
They got lucky, is what I'm saying. Though they were lucky that
did they get money? Did they get lucky?
I think so, because they had to scramble so hard. But if
they, I don't think that they cared about. Obviously, they didn't care because look at Washington State and Oregon State. Those guys got left out, and they don't care that those guys got left out because they made more money by shifting USC and UCLA to the Big Ten. They didn't care how it shook out. They knew that they were going to get the money that they wanted and needed. That's all that mattered.
Even if you are exclusively profit focused, you're going to have to do things the right way. Otherwise, you're just putting Band-Aids on things. It's headed for disaster. It's probably not going to be anytime soon. But maybe the next 5 to 10 years, if they try to keep doing massive shakeups, I don't think it's going to end. I don't think it's going to end well. And I think that eventually you're going to have fallout where it's going to be a lot of money lost. I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't know what it's going to look like, but it's not going to go well one time. And
for me, the Big 12 isn't in any jeopardy because those schools are pretty unified and they're on the same level. It's the ACC. If anything happens, it's going to be the ACC, and that's the one that's coming up. They've got to find a way to keep these guys happy. Your Florida States, your Clemson's, and they might bully the conference. I mean, Texas and Oklahoma bullied the conference for years and years and got their way until they left to the SEC, and that's when everything shook down. I mean, that was the first roller coaster was Texas and Oklahoma, and we've already heard Florida State, Clemson, those guys, they've already threatened. They're already trying to do it.
I wouldn't say Texas bullied that conference. They didn't win that conference.
Economically, they bullied the conference, not on the football field.
Yes. Yeah, no. Oklahoma dominated them most years until recently.
It is very ironic that Texas all of a sudden became good after leaving the Big 12.
That's money and recruitment. They finally put some things together, and obviously the Manning name really helps with that as well.
You think money was their issue? I don't think money was their issue.
No, I just think it came together at the right time. So
yeah,
and I think just having the name Manning really helped. When you pull a big name like that, like a generational player like that, if he turns out to be as good as he are, when he has that name with it, I think that pulls a ton of other recruits. Like, oh, I want to play with him. I've seen his dad play. I really want to play with him. So. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, my main issue honestly is just with the conferences getting too overinflated. I think it's ridiculous that you have these huge Big Ten, huge SEC teams that will never play other teams in a single season because it's so big. I think there should be limits in how many teams can be in a conference, and that's what hurts the other conferences. Honestly, I don't think the Pac-12 should have had to go scramble and get all these like Mountain West teams and these other smaller school teams when they could have. Honestly, the Big Ten should have had to kick out 2 or something, and I don't know, maybe the SEC kicks out 2, and then it makes more sense to put these teams here in the Big 12. And I get money's the main contributor to that, but I just don't think it's good for the sport to have like 2 teams that just dog walk their conference, but they don't play each other and they don't play other teams in their conference because there's just too many teams in their conference to actually run against them. So.
Ratings will drop if the sport becomes boring to watch, and I think that's where it's headed if they don't slow down and be more methodical with it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I don't want this to happen. I'm just worried that will. But I mean, to your guys' point too, we look at a team in Indiana, right? Last year where the conference was so big and the Big Ten is a huge, powerful conference, but those bottom teams kind of stink. And so you can get an Indiana that just beats up on these, bad teams in their conference and ends up in the conference championship, right?
Signature victories over Northwestern and Purdue.
Yeah, and so you get those Indianas that make it in, and it's like, well, the Big 12 might not have the big names, but you got to go through a grueling schedule to it's not a gimme win every week against Purdue and Northwestern.
Yet another reason why the Pac-12 was just fine the way it was.
You got to give up on that. They're toast.
Back in my day, our conferences made geological sense.
Yeah.
All right. Any final thoughts on the big picture? One thing we can all agree on again is that this is going to be another really interesting season for so many reasons on so many levels. National picture, each conference is going to be fascinating, and I think the skill level is going to be tremendous in a lot of these conferences and a lot of these games, big games, as unpredictable and fun as college football always is.
Yeah, I think it's a crucial year. I mean, depending on how things shake out, we saw changes specifically happen this summer because of the results of last year.
Yeah.
So it's going to happen again. It's going to be critical, and the fate's going to be decided on the football field almost. So, I mean, we'll see. Maybe some of these smaller teams will make it big from the ACC, and they'll be okay. We're just going to have to wait and see.
August 23rd. First 0 week. We're getting close.
0.
Yeah.
One more hot take. Sorry. They should move up the college football season.
Why?
To earlier?
That's
earlier, yes.
I don't know if that's a hot take or as much as it is an odd take. Go ahead.
If you move it up earlier, what?
You mean like into July or earlier in August?
Just 1 week earlier.
Oh,
One
okay.
week earlier. You just get more time for bowl season and the playoffs, and to emphasize it, I think. And then you don't have to compete with some of the other, like Thanksgiving week. It's tricky, right? And maybe you can give the athletes Thanksgiving week off or something. But I just feel like if you wanted to expand the playoffs or you wanted to have the emphasis it needs, give it one more week. Take the time. Let the athletes have some rest and prepare for those games and schedule them accordingly. Don't schedule them on random days.
The
spread them out.
big problem with that, though, is class schedule. You need students to be on campus. And
These guys are hardly out. Let me tell you. They're going through it, and I didn't have a lot of it. There are some joke of classes that go on at these schools. You can make it happen.
No, I'm saying for the fan base. I'm saying you gotta have students on campus to fill the student sections. You gotta have a lively environment. You're not gonna you push it back too early and you're gonna be running through a ghost town.
Well, that's part of my argument too. Is the playoffs? You want to have the student athletes there, don't you? Or not the student athletes, the students. Yeah. So, I mean, if you give that flexibility of an extra week, then you can pick and choose the dates that you have students there and everything.
Yeah,
they're not on break.
Is December. Most schools are
You
back
got
in
winter
session
break.
The second week of January.
You got winter break, and you got home games.
I don't care. I mean, the bowl season is not going to be affected much by that.
You got playoff home games.
Yeah, that don't. Or I guess those did start during like the week before Christmas this year, didn't they?
So you're saying that they should keep the end date where it is and just move it earlier a week and then give them a bye week? Is that what you're saying? An extra bye week?
Like a universal Thanksgiving bye week? But that's rivalry week, man. You can't mess with that.
Mm-mm.
I don't know. I
need you to bake
move
that
up the
thought
season
a little bit more.
You move up the season, you can move up the playoffs, and you can spread them out a little bit to be on better television days, and you can have the students there.
I'm willing to hear you out, but I need you to bake that thought a little bit more, okay?
All right.
Okay.
Mm.
Well, we made it through an episode without a hot take, anybody. Chance you came real close. Dodged it.
That's right.
All right. Thank you for joining us. This has been the Concussion Protocol Podcast. I am Connor, signing off for Chance and Chase. We'll be coming back to you with lots more to cover with the other conferences and everything else that's constantly changing in this wonderful, beautiful sport. See you next time.